Great. So today we're going to be hearing from Rua Mordecai, who's the science coordinator for the South Atlantic and the Southeast Blueprints. He's going to be talking to us about what's on deck from SECAS, or the Southeast Conservation Adaptation Strategy, this fall.
All right, so what to expect this fall out of SECAS. So many of you might remember the cycle usually align around the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies meeting in the fall, sort of deliver a lot of the materials, and then after that, if needed, we kind of finalize stuff. But every year we kind of go through this update cycle. So I'm going to get hit on a few of the major things to expect coming in this update cycle this year. And I'm also going to cover a little bit of some blueprint uses in the works, because those are fairly nice to kind of update on and get a sense of how this is used in general. So that's what I'm going to hit. Uses in the works, Blueprint 4.0, so the next update that should be coming up this year, and then also tracking progress towards the SECAS goal. So step one, uses in the works. So a lot of different cool uses of the blueprint. As you know, we quote a lot of numbers here. This was something from back in September, just to get a sense of where we were at 50 completed blueprint uses with about 60 more in progress. Hillier and actually cleaning up and updating some numbers, so we'll have some more updated numbers coming up soon. But a whole lot of really fun uses, and these are just the ones we know about, not necessarily all of them. But there's a lot of cool stuff. I can't really go through all of these, but I figured I'd just pick out a few examples as we go, just to give you a sense of some of the ways it's being used right now. So let's take a look at the SECAS geography here. And so this is giving you kind of a sense of the broader blueprint coverage. And so I'm going to start with a few state-specific uses, so statewide uses. So in this case, if my slides go forward, so Arkansas Game and Fish is working on using the blueprint to help create their conservation opportunity areas in their state wildlife action plan. So they're working on using the blueprint, again, across all of Arkansas. Then we've basically got a pretty exciting use that's about to be finished for the first year, probably in the next few months, which is the South Carolina Conservation Bank. It's a major land protection funding through the state legislature. And so they fund land protection. In their priority map, they're going to be used for picking projects. The blueprint is one of the core layers in there. And so we've got the blueprint in use for the land protection funding. And that's the first year cycle is about done in a few months. And then, but this will also be, as they're updating this and improving it every year, there'll be a chance for improved integration over time as well. So that's very exciting. Also been working with the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission on ways to potentially use the blueprint in aligning their land protection funds statewide. So looking at their projects and how they focus their efforts. And also the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, they're working on integrating the blueprint holistically across a number of their different programs and statewide efforts, including a way to also kind of match some of their efforts and reviews with Fish and Wildlife Service in Florida as well. So those are just a few statewide use examples that are ongoing. A few of them will have some finished uses very soon, which is exciting. And then, of course, we also have multi-state uses. One that you'll see in this newsletter, Addie Thornton, the coordinator for Surpass, kind of wrote up some nice things about the Good Map effort that they're doing. So the blueprint is being used in that Good Map effort. The Surpass is a partnership that includes agriculture, conservation, and military interests. So state, federal, really good military integration there. And so that this sort of Good Map is a core component of what they do, and so we're helping with a refresh of what that looks like, and the blueprint's incorporated in that. So that is very exciting. It's also helping us bring some new resources for user support, and being able to speak to how some of these actions contribute to the military mission and some other key components as well. So nice intersection and ways of talking about ecosystem benefits that we haven't been able to do before. So that's an example of multi-state uses. We have a few other exciting ones, at least one in private industry that we can't talk about yet. And I wish I could talk more about it, but should hopefully be able to say more in the near future. So that is multi-state stuff. And then, since I've been talking about statewide and multi-state, I wanted to drill down even finer into something that's actually been a nice expanding use of the blueprint, which is in city and county comprehensive plans. So here's a few examples that I know about right now. The green ones are complete. The blue ones are in the works. So we've got the blueprint incorporated into Union County in South Carolina, Fort Mill in South Carolina, and the two ones in blue that are in the works is the city of Conway in South Carolina and Wake County in North Carolina. So those are in the works pieces. So starting to find some nice connections into city and county comprehensive plans, which are a really fun experience as well. So those are a few examples of some particular uses at different scales. All right, so those are a few uses in the works. Next, I want to talk about the next update of the Southeast Conservation Blueprint. So this is 3.0, a map of that's something most of you will probably have seen here. And generally, the first time people see this either in a picture or in big map form, usually they're drawn to a couple of places within it. Usually it's like these two places in West Virginia and this part in East Texas, and going, wow, hey, what's going on there? That's a whole lot of priority. And the intent, of course, in the blueprint is, to put these things as different types of, apples to apples and have a similar amount of prioritization. That, based on the rules we worked out with the points of contact many years ago, that is not working in a number of places. And so we kind of knew about that, but this year we're going to do a big push to improve how we deal with overlapping areas. And so this is a kind of example showing these IMPET and overlap areas. So everything that's got stripes on it is an overlap area where multiple plans overlap. And right now, the approach has been basically include them both. Whether it's in one or the other, include each. And that results in some pretty over-prioritized areas, which is a known issue. But like spots in East Texas right now, it's like 99% is some level of priority, and it's supposed to be around 50 at the highest level. So that's something we're going to be working on with the points of contact and work on some improved measures for those overlap levels and get things more in balance, which is the intended purpose. So very excited to be working on those. So you should see improvement in that integration in those zones. And there's a lot of different things we're going to be exploring. So, all right, so that's the first thing people see. The typical next question is, what's going on with the marine area? Why did it just sort of stop? You see it in the South Atlantic there, and then people ask, well, what about the rest? And so in this next update, we should have some expanded marine coverage going all around the state of Florida. So that blueprint's now expanded to cover the marine area. So we will at least have a wraparound going from that South Virginia all the way around Florida, and that's a circular area there. So excited about some expanded marine coverage, and still looking into options for the Caribbean around Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and also around the rest of the Gulf. But this next update will have expanded marine coverage, which is exciting. The other thing we did in the last year's update was work on an expanded hubs and corridors layer. And so the intent here, of course, you've got the whole big blueprint, but a lot of people want to find the individual pieces of them. And one thing people have asked for is, can you just kind of give us the underlying big hubs and corridors network, not all the speckles and other priorities in between. And so we did for the first time, we started adding in a hubs and corridors layer, which was trickier than we thought it would be. And so in this current version, what we have is we've got, what you see here, we've got part of the hubs and corridors pulled out of this. And for next update, we're planning to have the expanded hubs and corridors layer to cover the rest of Florida and also out into the western part of SECAS. So on the western part of SECAS, on that center thing, we didn't totally have the full corridors defined in their blueprint input at that time, but that's being updated, and so that's exciting. And then down in Florida, we had corridors, but we didn't have the hubs part. So we'll have that piece integrated as well. So this is going back to the input and overlap areas. If you can see my cursor, the area we're hoping to now have Hudson corridors is right in this section, right in the middle. So we plan to add that into the next version of the blueprint as well. A few other improvements we're working on that you'll also see updating things. This entire area is also going to be updated and improving some issues with the coastal marsh down in Louisiana as well. So got a few nice improvements for this year in the works with respect to the blueprint. So you'll see those. We should have those in a few more months, have some drafts together. And then the next thing is tracking progress towards the SECAS goal itself. So you may remember from previous slides or talks that we set as of last year, the state directors approved this 10% or greater improvement in the health, function, and connectivity of southeastern ecosystems by 2060, this overarching goal. So now we have some targets and metrics we're shooting for as far as the actual ecosystem outcomes holistically across the South, which is cool, and some metrics that can keep us on track. So a 1% improvement every 4 years and a 1% increase in conservation actions within the blueprint every 4 years as well. So this is not just holistically across all the ecosystems, but also tracking them within the individual ecosystems, so sort of freshwater aquatic, up in your open pine and prairie, up in your marine ecosystems. So broadly across those ecosystems, seeing how we're doing. And the intent is to try to build off of existing assessments that we have out there, the coastal condition reports, state of the birds, the longleaf reporting, and all these various other things, state of the South Atlantic, kind of take all those different pieces that are in their own little resource silos and pull them together holistically into an integrated report. Now, this is a huge and ambitious thing, so of course, this year, next year, probably even the year after, we're not going to have it perfectly locked away, amazingly all done and tracked. But we can make some significant progress every year in trying to track some of these pieces. So we will be reporting on, in the fall, have a synthesis of some of these, across some ecosystems, what we can say so far about progress towards that goal. And you may remember, we talked, I think, on a previous web forum a while back about some of the earlier trends we were seeing as we were pulling together things, like the trends from the Chesapeake and how a lot of the aquatic assessments tended to be stable and increasing. This is the coastal condition index, the South Atlantic and the Gulf and the full region. So just a quick reminder of some of the metrics. We're also seeing that grassland and open pine was seeing more decline than upland hardwood and forested wetlands. This is from one of the State of the Birds report, showing the wetland birds and forest birds are doing a little better than grassland birds. So some of the things we can draw on at the beginning. This might be familiar to some of the folks. This is the prescribed fire trend in the longleaf reporting from 2013 to 2017. So even though things are still looking pretty tough in open pine, we're starting to make good progress on restoring longleaf and getting fire back in the ecosystem and some of those things. So that's a flavor of some of the stuff we'll be drawing on and reporting on in this initial cut. But again, setting expectations, it's not going to be the perfect flashy state of the South kind of report, but okay, here's what we figured out so far. So expect to see a nicer synthesis of that coming. So that is basically for this year, but I also wanted to hit super quickly on what's in the works for next year. So there's one thing, not sure how much you've heard of this regional species of greatest conservation needs. So this is through the Wildlife Diversity Committee at SAFWA. So each state has their species of greatest conservation need, and so now across the whole South, we're collaboratively coming together on some regional species of greatest conservation need, and so that can contribute to shared actions, but also in shared tracking of how we're doing for the ecosystems across the South. So that is in the works. Should have some good progress and developments by next year. And then, of course, as I mentioned, yearly updates to the blueprint. So the Southeast Blueprint 5.0 will be something we're shooting for next year, and a lot of cool improvements, especially in the South Atlantic conservation blueprint. There's a lot of cool stuff we're working on, some improved indicators, some finer resolution, hoping to get down into finer resolution. We'll see how that goes, but I think there's some pretty awesome things we're going to be able to do in the next version of the South Atlantic blueprint. We're also working, probably not in this year, but into probably be more like next year, into, I showed you the Hudson corridors, but also some other ways to slice up the blueprint around aquatic resources and across all of longleaf and across some other themes, some things we're working on. So cool stuff. I'll keep you in the loop, of course, on those improvements as they're going. And then the last piece in the works for next year we have is some discussion of improved governance around SECAS. So there are two levels at which kind of things happen within SECAS. At the top level, there is the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, so the directors there, and the federal agencies in the Southeast Natural Resource Leaders Group. So that's the two groups that have come together, initiated by the states, and they brought in the Southeast Natural Resource Leaders Group. And so that group has points of contact and folks that are helping make some of these higher level decisions about where SECAS goes. At the same time, there's also the very bottom up approach within these individual inputs on the South Atlantic blueprint and Peninsula Florida on those pieces. And so that is the sort of broadly inclusive state, federal, private citizen, kind of everybody working together around these prioritizations. And so we have that going on, as well as the kind of bottom up. Well, at this level, this group is now doing is kind of bringing on some committees and thinking about, okay, how do we improve the governance, particularly in the wake of some recommendations from the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies on these kind of broad landscape partnerships and how to better incorporate nonprofits and private companies and other organizations. So take a look at the newsletter or the blog on the website. Mallory's got a great blog that talks all about some of the background and history and a little bit about some of the governance stuff as well. So that is something on the horizon as well. So with that is what's on deck for this year and also what's coming up for next year.